Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Kevin Waldrop. I'm from the Office of the EVC Center for Operational Excellence, and I'm the chair of BECOP and your host today for our session. We are very excited to bring the second in a series for our Lucidchart series. This one is Data Linking and Power Features. And returning to complete the series is our very special guest from Lucidchart, Chelsea Hicks, who we'll meet in just a minute. So I hope all of you have time off plans in July, because we do at BECOP, so there's no event in July. We will be back in August. And for those new to BECOP, it stands for it's UC San Diego's Business Excellence Community of Practice. And our community is open to those who work in, or even if you're just interested in, the three pillars that are project management, continuous improvement with Lean Six Sigma methodology, and change management using ProSci and other approaches. So we definitely have a website, and we'll have Cindy put that in the chat, which I don't have open right now, so that'll be in there. And that is a place where you can join and sign up for our quarterly newsletter. And we also do events briefs in between the quarterly newsletters to remind you of these type of events and other events that are related to BECOP and what we do. So with that, let's jump right in. I'll say that right after the presentation portion, it's pretty casual today, and we'll probably end up taking questions during it, but we will have some time afterwards as well. You're welcome to put questions in the chat. And then at the end, when we are doing questions, you're welcome to ask your question out loud and just use the raise your hand feature in the toolbar. So like I've mentioned, we are definitely pleased to have Chelsea Hicks back with us. And for those who weren't able to join us the first time, she's a customer service manager for Lucid for Education. And she has experience helping educational institutions all over the world to maximize their usage of Lucid tools. She currently lives in Utah with her 4 children, all boys, and a husband of 14 years. So with that, welcome, Chelsea. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Kevin. As Kevin mentioned, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. My colleague Dave Palmer is here. He's going to be watching the chat. He'll help answer questions. And if it's something that we want to talk about live, please feel free to raise your hand and we can call on you to ask questions. If you were here last time, go ahead and put a little thumbs up in the chat. So I know that, so I can see who already got the beginner's gist of this. Anybody? All right. So we've got a couple of thumbs up. Excellent. So because we have a few newcomers today, I did want to just do a quick overview, just a brief overview of Lucidchart itself. The homepage, a little bit how to get started, and just some of the use cases and what we use Lucidchart for. So this is our Lucidchart homepage. It's the Lucid homepage. You can access all of our tools here, including Lucidchart, LucidSpark, and LucidScale. Lucidchart is a diagramming tool, and it is very powerful with data linking and with conditional formatting. It allows us to build a lot of really great documents. LucidSpark is a whiteboarding tool, and it is a virtual ideation and brainstorming tool that has some really broad applications across all types of organizations. And LucidScale is our cloud architecture diagramming tool. So you can connect it to your cloud architecture and it will map it all out for you live. And any changes that are made, it can update and show those changes. So today we're focusing on Lucidchart, and in order to kind of orient you with this homepage, I wanted to just show you a couple of things. Here on the left-hand side, you can find all of your documents. You can start a new document here, Lucidchart, blank document. You can also create from a template. And I want to direct you to the templates because it is a great place to start. And it's a great place to see how are other people using Lucidchart. And when you first come into this templates library here, you'll notice that you can see little symbols next to each of these templates. That is to indicate to you which tool these templates are meant to be used with. So this is LucidSpark. This is Lucidchart. So if you want to look specifically for Lucidchart templates, you'd want to select Lucidchart here at the top. From this page, on the left, you'll be able to sort by use case. So if you are looking to build flowcharts, there's some really great templates here for flowcharts. If you're looking to create org charts, there's some really great templates for building org charts. You can also see there's design UI, the business strategies, planning and tracking projects. We talked about PMO a little bit. So Lucidchart has some great applications for project management. If you are serious about Agile, there are some specific Agile tools and templates here to be used with Lucidchart. But Agile also has great applications with Lucidspark. So if you're interested in upping your Agile game, Lucidspark is a fantastic tool, and you can reach out to me if you want more information on that. But you can see there are some really great templates here in Lucidchart as well. And from here, if you want to just create a blank document, you would come and go to Lucidchart and blank document. And I want to show you just a couple of things on the actual canvas before we jump into data linking. So as this is opening, you'll see it's giving you a pro tip. And if you're like me, you never read them, but they're really great. So I urge you to actually read them. One pro tip that I love is F1. If you click F1 on your keyboard, you will get all of the hotkey shortcuts. And if you're on a Mac, it will give you all of the equivalents on a Mac. So it's a really great place to go to find some shortcuts if you're looking to save yourself some time. On this canvas, on the left-hand side, you'll find your shape libraries. The standard flowchart and shapes libraries always will come up on a new document. They're always there. Those are the only ones that show up when you first open a blank diagram. If you want to utilize other shapes, which I'll tell you that many institutions stick to standard and flowcharts, and they're missing out on so much. So if you want to see what Lucidchart can do, come into the shape library, click on that shape library, and you'll see the many shape libraries that we have available for you to use. These are all free, and it also will, again, help you to get started as you're building things in Lucidchart. And you can add these to the shape libraries that you have on the left-hand side just by clicking the little checkbox here. You can also expand this and select, oh, I actually just want the basic shapes. So I can use those, and they're added there to my shape libraries, and then I can just drag and drop onto the canvas. Some quick things to note about the canvas is as you put a shape onto your canvas, you'll see that there are red circles and blue squares. The red circles allow you to create lines, and the blue squares allow you to reshape and resize. A lot of this is very self-explanatory, and also I urge you to come in and play around with it. You can't hurt anything. So come in and play around with these colors and shapes and formatting. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that, but there's a lot of fun things you can do in here to make it look more professional, to be more individualized to you. Some other quick things I want to show you is this right here. As I add things, you'll notice, see, this says saved now. So everything is saved up to this point. If I add a shape, it says saving and saved. So it's constantly saving for me. I don't have to worry about clicking file and save or Control S or anything like that. And if I want to see what changes have been made on my document and by whom, I can select this little clock icon, and it will show me the versions of my document. Now, I haven't made a lot of changes, so there's just these two versions of my document here. And from there, I can create a new one with this version, or I can restore it to this version if I want to. Okay, so those are some of the basics in Lucidchart. We covered these extensively a couple of weeks ago. So if you want more information, please feel free to watch that recording. And then if you have questions, we have a lot of resources, which I also want to share with you probably more towards the end of the training. So we'll get back to that, and we'll talk about some excellent resources that we have available to you. So now we're going to move into data linking. And there are a lot of different applications for data linking and a lot of different ways to go about this. The thing to keep in mind is there are only certain versions of documents with data that can be used when you're using data linking. So I'm going to click this button down here at the bottom of my shape libraries, and it's always there. So this is that document that I just created. You'll see that import data. And I'm clicking on this to show you just the variety of ways that you can use data linking. So you'll notice you can create process diagrams. These are recommended for me based on what I've created in the past, as well as the persona that I chose when I first logged into Lucidchart. So it gives me some recommendations, but I can also click on any of these to find some additional options of templates and ways that I can import data. You'll also see as you look into these templates that there are types of documents that are acceptable to use for this data linking. So you can connect with Bamboo HR, you can use a CSV, you can use a Google Sheet, or you can use an Excel file. For a mind map, it only works with a text file. For a process diagram, only with a CSV. So you want to determine what type of file do I need for the document that I'm going to be creating. And first, what I want to do is create a project management type tool here. So I have this multi-dimensional swim lane diagram. You'll see it has 4 columns across the top and 4 rows down the side. I have indicated the week that these projects or tasks are meant to be completed, as well as the names of those that are assigned to complete those tasks. I've also added a nice little color key to help me understand where each task is in the process. But I don't have any data on this yet. There's nothing here. So what I want to show you is the data that I will be adding to this document. So this is the data that I'll be using. I'm using a Google Sheet. And the reason I want to use Google Sheet over an Excel file or a CSV is that if I want to quickly update my document, I can come onto my Google Sheet, change the information, refresh it on my document, and it will all change. If I'm going to use a CSV or an Excel file, I'm basically uploading a snapshot of my data. And so when I change it on that Excel file or I change it on that CSV, I'm going to have to re-upload the data, not just refresh it. So I'm going to be using a Google Sheet to demonstrate this way of using data linking. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to this little symbol here, and I'm going to link data. So I'll show you that again. So I'm here on my shape library, and I'm going to click on this little symbol here that has a link and then some disks, it looks like, and then I'm going to click link data. Something that's really cool about this is we do have some example data that you can download and try this on your own without using any of your own data. But I already have my data ready to go, and I'm going to use a Google Sheet. And then I'm going to search for my document, which it is called the data linking example. And here's my document here. Now this Google Sheet has 4 different tabs on it, and I only want this first tab. So I have the option to add all of the tabs, but I just want that first tab. So I'm going to click next on that. And then it's going to ask me to give the header row, as well as you have to have at least one column that has unique information. So it couldn't be the date because many of them are the same. It couldn't be the owner because many of them are the same, and so on. So I'm going to first select my header row, which this is my header row. And I can have a data set without a header row if I want. It's obviously a little bit more easy to do this if you do have a header row. And then my unique column is this A. So it's the step, it's the name of the assigned task. So I have selected that, and I'm going to click finish, and nothing happened. So there's nothing new on my diagram, but here on the left-hand side, you can see my data. And if I come back to my shape library, it's gone. So if I need to find that data again, I'm going to click on this little data symbol. And here is my data set, my data linking example. I've already added a couple of shapes here, and this multi-dimensional swim lane is something you can find in your shape library. If you come to shapes and search, I can search if I spell it right, it's multidimensional, and then it will give me that swim lane right here. I can just drag it out and drop it down. So, and then what's really fun about this multidimensional swim lane is on the right-hand side, I can change how many columns and rows it has. I can have as many or as little columns and rows as I would like to have. Then I've also just added these plain old squares right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a row of data that I want to have displayed on this square shape right here. So
Chelsea?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, just while you're at this spot, someone asked that you show them real quickly how you first linked. I think they're looking away. And since I don't want to get us too far down before we come back to it, so would you just really quickly show how you got there and how you added that data?
Absolutely. So
Thanks,
I'm
Chelsea.
actually just going to delete the data set and do it again so I can show you again. So I'm deleting this data set, and you'll see when I come to this data button here, it shows this link data. So I'm going to click link data and import your data. Again, I'm using a Google Sheet. And I'm going to search for the Google Sheet that I want and select. And again, I want to select only the tabs that I want the data to be connected to this document. So I'm just going to do the data linking example for now. And then it's going to ask me again for my header row as well as my unique information column. So now my data is there displayed on the left-hand side. Hopefully that was good for you. And if you want to see it again, we can do it again later. And I will be doing it again with a couple other data sets. So what I'm going to do to add some data to this little shape here is I'm going to click on the number. So you'll see these 6 dots that show up. I'm going to grab that and drop it onto this shape. So it doesn't look any different right now, but I can see that it's linked. And on the right-hand side, I now see a data panel. If I didn't see that, I would just need to click on this contextual panel, and then I can see the data that is now attached to this shape right here. Now from this, I can add any piece of data that I want that is now attached to this shape. So I'm going to add the title of the column, which is step, and then I'm going to add a little, oh, dang, let me try that again. And then I'm going to add a little colon there, and I'm going to add the actual title. And then I'm going to add the owner and Amy. All right. So all we have now on this is showing the step and the owner. That's it. If I want, I can change the font on these so that it's maybe bigger. And I can add a few different things to this. So as I mentioned, I have a little key down at the bottom, a color code key that you can see down here. And right now, all I know about this step is the name of it and who owns it. But I don't know where it is in the process. I don't know what percentage it is complete or who needs to approve it or anything like that. If I wanted to add that kind of information, I can, but it would just be a whole bunch of words on a square, which is not as fun. So what I'm going to do is actually add some conditional formatting to my shape. So to do that, I'm going to click on this fun little magic wand right here. This is conditional formatting. And I'm going to create a rule. And I'm going to use the shape data, not the text, because the text is already showing there. I'm using the data that's behind the shape to create some conditional formatting. And I want to know what is the status of this step. And if it is awaiting approval, so if it is equal to awaiting approval, then I'm going to add a condition. Or sorry, I'm going to add a shape style. So I can see my color key down here. So it needs to be this gray color. So I'm going to click on the color and add a color and use this little dropper tool so that I get the exact right color. So now I have this, if it's awaiting approval, it's gray. Then I can add another condition, an or condition, that if the shape data status is equal to approved, then I want it to be this green color down here. And so on. So I can do this for all of my statuses that I have, and I can have it match up perfectly with my color key. So this is now in progress. And I already have all the colors down here, as you can see. So I'm just going to select that. Okay. So now we have, oh, I messed it up. I needed an and. I did or. Let's change this. Okay. So I need to do else conditions. I totally messed this up, you guys. I'm going to start over. Sorry. Okay, so we needed to actually do different conditions for each one. So we need to have if the shape data is, the status is equal to approved, then we want the shape color to be this awaiting approval, or sorry, with the approved color. All right, and then the else condition right here, that's what I did wrong. So we do an else or else if it is equal to in progress, then the shape color is the in progress shape color. Okay, so now you can see the two different colors there. I'd have all of my 5 colors, but I've already wasted enough time messing up on this. I don't want to waste any more time. Okay, so now if we look at our data, I want to find one that is in progress so that we can see how this works. So number 8 is in progress. So if I drag and drop this on to this shape right now, it doesn't have that conditional formatting. The conditional formatting is not currently on the shape. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to just copy this shape and move it down because it's got my color rules. It's got the information I want on it, but I'm going to replace the data that's on there with new data. So now we've got this new step here that has Bob and it's creating messaging. And I'm going to do the same thing and bring this one down, delete that empty square, and I'm going to add this one and replace it. All right. So now we can see as we build on this, we can add some fun conditional formatting, and we can add some icons as well. So if we wanted to do this with these shapes, we can add, if the shape data, let's see, percent complete is greater than 50%, 50. Then I want it to have an icon of a green check mark. And so, and then I'm going to come over here to my information here, and I'm going to make this one 50. So I can show you how it will change as I refresh this data set. So you'll see this is the refresh data set. So I can click refresh. And the changes that I made on my Google Sheet will then reflect on my data here. I might need to give that a second. All right, so we'll wait for a minute for that to refresh. Okay, so we can also do some other fun things with project management, like we can use these smart containers, where we can add data to the smart containers in here. We can add some containers. So we have this new item where we can add data here and add the data here for us. And then as we move things around, so if I were to move this over to urgent, it's going to change the data to be urgent, or medium, and it's going to change for me so that I don't have to go in and change the data. I can just move these containers around and it will change. And I can edit, you know, what do I want these containers to display? What needs to be up there? So for me, I want these containers to be to show who is assigned to each of these tasks. So I can make it so the containers show who's assigned to, and as I move it, it can change who it's assigned to. Another fun way to do these smart containers would be to have each container be the status of the project. So if it's in progress, we can move it to complete, and that's going to change the data to be complete so that we can manage our projects that way as well. All right, so we gave it just a second. Come on, Google Sheet, you can do it. Hopefully my conditional formatting was set up correctly too. Still thinking. So let's take a look at this rule. So if % complete is greater than 50. Oh, I did 50. That's why I didn't do it greater than 50. All right, let's try that again. So it's still refreshing, so it's going to take a minute. While we're doing that, I'm going to do another. So you can see as I add data to this, that the data that I've chosen to display changes. So I don't have to go in and change the information on the shape. It's changing as I add new data to it. So this is a really fun way to build out your projects in this way. Now I know we had a lot of interest in org charts, so I want to take some time to show you how to build out org charts automatically. One thing is, again, if you have Google Sheets, it's going to be a lot easier to update that data. So this is my example data for an org chart. We have the name of the employee, their title, the department that they're part of, their manager, and this helps set up the hierarchy is by having the manager. And in some cases, if you have like a number for the manager, so if you're the employee number for the manager, that can make things a little bit easier, but it also works with the name as long as there are no duplicates with, there aren't 2 Jim Halperts at the organization. So if you have 2 Jim Halperts at your organization, then that's going to confuse the system. But, and in that case, you want to use the employee number, right? Not the name. So we have the manager's name, their phone number, their email, and then we also have the URL to their photo. Not all of these are currently working. So when I build out this org chart, it's going to have a couple of missing photos. But if you have a URL for the photo for your employee, you can put it in here and it'll automatically put it right into your org chart. So this is the data that I'm going to be using to build this org chart. You can actually download this data if you want. It's some of the example data that you can find when you're doing the when you're working with the org chart templates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I have org chart library here already set up. So I can click import data here, or I can click import data right here. So import data. And then I have my org chart and I'm going to import my data. Oh, it does this to me every time. All right. We might have to start with a new document. Okay, so I'm going to use my blank document here. Don't try and make process maps and PMO things and an org chart on the same document, I guess is my takeaway here. Dave, have you found a workaround for this when this happens?
Seems like I didn't like when we were presenting, but if you just wait a minute, it typically does show up.
Be so patient. I'm really not patient, but I'm just trying so hard to be patient. Okay, let's try it one more time. Slowly import. Nope. Okay, let me stop sharing for just a second.
When it gets
if I can get this to work.
When it gets to that point before you X out, leave it there and it should display the rest. So.
Okay. Okay. Let me reshare. Sorry about that. Okay. So again, it's going to ask me, do I want to use Google Sheets? Do I want to use Excel, CSV? And in this case, it gives me a fourth option of Bamboo HR. So if you use Bamboo HR, it is an integration that you can have set up. So I'm going to go with Google Sheets. And remember, the name of my document is org chart import example. So we're going to look for that one. And here we have that document. And it's going to ask me a couple of questions about my data, again, as it did with the other examples. So I'm going to go by name. As I mentioned, I don't have an ID number, so I'm going to go by name, and it says using ID numbers provides the best experience. And again, this is due to the fact that if you had 2 employees with the same name, it's not going to be able to figure out which of those 2 people is the manager. And I'm going to select the supervisor name is manager, that my column is called manager, and that's where I have the supervisor's name. Then the name and the name that matches up. The role would go under the title. That's what my column is called. And the image URL I have called the photo. Then it's going to ask me, do you want to make an org chart for everybody? All one big org chart? Or do you want to make separate little org charts for either each manager or each department, each title even? I'm going to do one big org chart. And then I'm going to click finish. And magically, I have an org chart that is built out for me that I did very little work for. So you'll see all of the data that is here that I had on my org chart example is now displayed in my org chart. So if I want to come in and I need to make changes to my org chart, let's say that I am Jim Halpert and I want Dwight Schrute to be assistant to the regional manager, then I'm going to change that and come back to my org chart here. And I can come to manage data. And again, this is on this right-hand side under the contextual panel here. And I'm going to go to manage data and refresh the data set. And as I refresh that data set, you will see Dwight's role update as it gets done with refreshing. So now he is assistant to the regional manager. And I can make any changes. So if I want to put Andy Bernard now under Aaron, I can drag and drop that. And that will, I can do it, I can make changes that way. Or I can separate and make him equal to Aaron. I can also, I can scroll these up. I can't remember the word, but you can minimize these so that you don't have to see everybody all at once. And you
Collapse.
can see, what was that? Collapse. Yeah, thanks, Dave. You can collapse them or expand them. That's why Dave's here. And you can see that you can make it look the way that you want it to look. You can also change the font on these, the coloring. You can do conditional formatting as well. So if I want to do some conditional formatting on this chart, I can come in and add a rule that says that if the shape data department is equal to sales, then I want an icon, and I can even find a custom icon. If I want to go in and find and download a picture of a money symbol for my sales team, I can use that custom icon. I can also add a dynamic shape, or I can change the shape style. So if I want all of the salespeople to be green, then all of the salespeople are now green. I can also have it show, I can do the same with each of these departments, or I can use the manager's name so I can easily see who the manager is. I can go by you see a lot of things in here that don't quite match up with what we're looking at, because I also have a network diagram on here. So you'll see things, funny things like IP address. I don't need to know Andy Bernard's IP address. But you can see all of the fun ways that you can use conditional formatting on even just an org chart. And then as I display this or I embed it somewhere, if I make changes to my Google Sheet, it will refresh on my Lucidchart document and it will refresh wherever it's embedded. So I don't have to keep continually downloading and uploading my org chart. It's going to change as I make changes to it, and everyone will see the most up-to-date version of that org chart. Okay, are there any questions on org charts up to this point? Great. Okay, so the network diagram is another way that you can use data linking as well. So I have some data that I would like to add. I'm going to add another data set right here, and I'm going to use this network diagram data. It's not a lot of data, but it shows the equipment, Ethernet switch PC, the model, the speed, the status, and the IP address. So I'm going to grab that data. and add it to my document. And you'll notice that this isn't to replace the data I already have. So my project management data is still going to be there. I'm just adding another data set that I can use on this same document. So now when I come up here to my data, I can toggle between the data linking example information and my network diagram. So I'm going to grab this Ethernet and I'm going to stick it on to my Ethernet here. Again, you don't see any changes, but we know that the data is now sitting on this shape and the switch and the PC. And again, I can use some conditional formatting for my, I can use some conditional formatting for my network diagram here. And I'm going to add if the shape data, and I believe, hold on, what was it? Status. If the status is equal to bad, then I want an icon of a red X. So I know the switch is bad. And then I can have an else condition of the status is equal to warning. Then I want this yield sign. And if the status is equal to good, then I want a green check mark. So on my network diagram, you can now see that the Ethernet's good, the switch is bad, and the PC has a warning. So I can quickly see if there are any issues with my network diagram here, or with my network. Okay, so we've talked about smart containers a little bit. I didn't go too much into smart containers. I have a couple of examples that you can look at with smart containers. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on project management either, because, but look, our green check mark showed up. Woo, Google Sheets. I want you to come in and start using these and start learning how to do these, but only if you're interested in it, which is why I don't want to spend a lot of time on any one thing, because I know we have kind of a varied audience today. So if there are specific questions, please let me know and we can dive into them a little bit deeper. We do have about 20 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we cover everything that everyone wanted to cover. Before we move into questions though, there were a couple of resources that I wanted to share with you so that you can see how others are using Lucidchart, whether that's in the business sphere or in the education sphere. There are a couple of places you can go to learn more about how Lucidchart is being used. One of those is you can go to lucid.co. And this is where you'd see more business use cases. And you can find that under resources and customers. And you'll be able to see all of the, not all, but some of the examples of customers who are currently using Lucidchart, as well as some specific case studies where you can learn how DocuSign used it specifically, Mozilla, Western Union, Delta, and Okta, and some of these fun quotes from various organizations. And if you're looking at learning more about the education sphere specifically, we have our own website. It's lucidforeducation.com. And from here, you can come to learn more about how these tools can be used in the classroom. So if you scroll down a little bit more on this page, you can find out how to engage students through differentiated instruction. And you can click on any one of these to learn more about how you can use Lucid in the classroom specifically. Some additional resources that you have access to is if you come to your homepage, on the right-hand side, you'll see this little question mark. You can come to what's new, which is going to give you the updates. And we are constantly improving the tools. All three of our tools are constantly improving. If you come specifically to Lucidchart, you'll be able to see all of the updates that have been made to the product so that you can be using all of the fun tools. The most recent would be our video integration with Loom, where you can come here and click on this camera to record video, and you can have it record your face as well as your screen, or you can have it just do your screen or even just your camera. So if we do screen only, we can start a quick recording, and I'm going to use this screen and I can start a recording. and say, this is how you build a flow chart. And we're going to drag out these shapes and some arrows. And that's my video. So I click pause and stop. And then it's going to allow me to just embed that video right onto my document. So if I wanted to have a quick how-to for my website with videos embedded and all of that, I can do that. I can also send a link. So if I want to grab that link, I can send that to anyone and they'll have access to that video as well. Some other things that you can see in the release updates, we now have editable spreadsheets, so you can add your own data right onto your document instead of linking it. So you have your own, basically your own little CSV in your document that you can go in and change and update as you go. So some really cool things you can learn there. Also in our education center, when you click on that question mark, you can watch some getting started basic tutorials and read some basic tutorials. But the key here is the training labs. The training labs are extensive, they're free, they're self-paced, they really cater to a wide variety of learning styles as well. There's some reading, there's some videos, but there's also some tasks that it will have you go into the actual tool and complete tasks. So some pretty cool stuff in here. You can learn more about conditional formatting, more about data linking, and designing dynamic diagrams, and all of this is free. It looks like we do have a question in the chat. Is that correct?
It's like Kevin has one about org chart data display. And then we have another one probably after that.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Chelsea, in the screen that you have up now, and you showed us to the right-hand side, you selected the step and the owner to be visible. In the org chart version, I saw in the setup, there were 3 things. This field is really, I call it this field. Can you also add other fields inside this box, or is that dependent on the type of org chart that you selected?
So this is based right now on the template that I selected. But you can see over here that you can also play with this data that is tied to each individual shape. Dave, do you have an easy way to add data to all the shapes?
Yeah, so we'll click on layout instead of data on the right-hand side. So if you then click on fields at the very bottom. So anything, basically whatever was in your spreadsheet is displayable. It's just going to bring in a few ones because it can obviously, there's a lot that you may want, but then you can determine what should be added and make sure that you can bring in anything that you've got really.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then Mercedes had a question about how did the approval check mark get entered? So if we're talking about this green check mark right here, is that what we're talking about, Mercedes?
Yes.
Okay, so this little check mark, I added conditional formatting that if the % complete was greater than 50, there would be a green check mark. So on my data, I went into the data linking example and I changed it to 75 so that it would add that check mark, because previous to that it was lower than 50. So now it's above 50. So I refreshed the data set and it added that green check mark because it was above 50. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. Thank you.
And this will tell you that my rules are not applied. None of my rules are applied to all shapes. And that's because I've got rules that only apply to my org chart, some that only apply to my network diagram, and some that only apply to my project management. But if I wanted all of the selections to add to, if I wanted all of the rules to apply to all of my shapes, I can do that. I can click apply to all and apply to all and apply to all. And then any shape that I have is going to have this conditional formatting attached to it. Any other questions?
So I don't have another question yet in the chat, so we may have some others come in, but I wondered, I'm going to put you on the spot, if we could potentially show smart containers.
Sure.
Just because I think org charts can be really helpful in smart containers. So that might be one to show real quick.
Okay, so I'm going to get rid of what I have here because I want to just do a start from scratch with my smart containers. So I'm going to search my shapes here for smart containers. And this is one that I can drag and drop onto the board, or I can come and I can import using smart containers as well. So I'm going to import my data, and I'm going to use a previously uploaded data set because I already have that data set on this document. So I'm going to select my data linking example data set. And now it's going to ask me how I want to organize these smart containers and what I want the fields to be for each of these. So I'm going to do the, we're going to do the assignee on this one. And then the shapes are going to be the project names. So I have Bob, Catherine, and Dave who have these tasks that they need to complete. Dave has too many, so I'm going to move this org chart over to Catherine. And now this shape and this task belong to Catherine, and the data on the shape is going to demonstrate that as well. So now the assignee is Catherine. So if I move it over to Bob and I select that shape, now the assignee is Bob. So that's the beauty of these smart containers, is as you move things around, it's going to change the data behind those shapes. And I can add tasks to Catherine if I want, and add some information on what Catherine needs to do, which is update the FAQ. And so I can add as many of these as I want. I can also add another container. So if I have a new assignee, so now I'm going to give Chelsea some tasks. And then I can add tasks for Chelsea. So smart containers are fun in that way. Now, Dave, what else do you want me to show with smart containers?
No, that's great. Laura Lynn asked a question about whether or not this would change the data set that's coming into it when you're making those changes.
That's a really great question. Should we find out by looking at our data linking example? It doesn't look like it's changing it. Does it change it back and forth, Dave?
Not on this one. This one won't.
Yeah.
Org charts, if you've made an org chart and done the changes like you did, you can re-export it and get a new data, essentially a new document with your changes. But this particular one won't. I really like smart containers for things like functional teams, or if you happen to use Scrum teams or anything like that. It's just nice to quickly see who's assigned to what and move them around and get a visual.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? And this is another case where you can add that additional fields to these shapes, so you don't just have one piece of data on this. So like if you are using a Scrum team, for example, you can add the points that the estimated point value for each task. So you can have it sorted that way, or view how many points each person has to make sure nobody is overloaded with tasks. All right, any other questions? We have about 10 minutes, so I'd love to stay as long as you need to go over any questions that you have.
I'll ask for a clarification. I think I understand it, but with the org chart or anything that we create similar to it, if we've embedded that into a web page and we do go to the source document and update the source, the fact that it's Google, it updates by itself, but all we need to do is go into the Lucidchart and refresh the data.
With a Google Sheet, you don't even need to do that so much. It will refresh by itself after, I think it's not more than like 30 seconds, like it will refresh. And so if you just change the source data, it should change on your website where you've embedded it.
Glad I asked then. That's awesome.
But if you're using a CSV, or if you're using an Excel file, then you would need to re-upload that data every time you make a change. Or if you're using Bamboo HR, you don't have to change anything. It's just connected to your HR system. So
great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does this, can you, I can't remember if I missed it or not. If you have Excel spreadsheets and it's in Google Doc and you update, does that feed into this?
Yeah, so if it's in, well, not if it's in a Google Doc, it has to be in Google Sheets.
Right. Sorry.
So if you wanted to copy what you have in an Excel spreadsheet and paste it onto a Google Doc and then use file instead of using the static Excel file, you can do that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
One thing that I think you're getting at, because I've had this as well, it's connected right now to specific rows and columns and cells. And so when you do that, if you make any changes, it could potentially break the links that are there. So as long as you're copying back into the same cells, it will still flow over to it. Otherwise, you might have to relink it. Does that make sense? Okay, hopefully it does.
And
Right.
and if you're using like Office online, like 365, it still acts as a static document. It's not going to be a live connection like it is with Google Sheets. Any other questions? For those of you that were here last time, have you been able to implement anything that you learned from our last meeting? Anybody have some success stories they want to share? Don't leave me hanging. Anybody?
I'll just share that I ran a test and the test went very well. And I created a Lucidchart with a kind of where do I go map. And when you click on the button, it is hot linked, hyperlinked. But the fact that I created it in Lucidchart and it was live embedded in a web page was a new feature that I learned because of your session last time. So I'm looking forward to actually using it. It's exciting.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Fabulous example. Are there, has anyone learned something today that they're excited to implement?
Hi, this is Mercedes. I just implemented that conditional formatting that you just did on my chart. So thank you.
Fantastic. Even though I totally botched that part of the training, you still got something out of it. I'm really glad. Thanks, Mercedes. I love that example. And again, I mean, you mentioned that, so Laurelyn mentioned that she wants to learn the program and play, but again, please get in there and play around. You can't mess anything up, especially if you're just creating a new blank document and you're just trying to build something from scratch and learn more on how to use it. Spend some time in there and utilize these free Lucidchart training sessions that you have access to in learning labs or in the training labs, because there's a lot of really great information in there and you can go at your own pace. I often go too fast. So if you can watch the recording at maybe half speed, that might help you as well, but you can come in and complete these on at your own pace and really level up in your skills with Lucidchart. There's a lot of really great functionality and many people are just scratching the surface. So have some fun with it.
Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for coming back. Dave, Octavio, thank you so much for the support. Thank you everyone for attending today. Like I mentioned in the chat, these recordings will be available on the BECOP website and under the events. And just as a note, we move things from upcoming to archived. So if you're at the end of the month kind of thing, maybe look in both places, but it'll be there soon. And thank you again for being here. Take care.
Thank you.